So here we are once again for more C1 Advanced Writing. Today we are going to look at how to write proposals, and we're going to go into a lot of details, so make sure you keep watching until the end. Hello and welcome to Teacher Phil, where I help people like you pass their Cambridge exams. Make sure you like the video and check out the full article on my website. The link is in the description box below. And with all that being said, let's get started. First of all, proposals are not a mandatory task in C1 Advanced Writing. The only task you have to write is essays instead of a proposal. You could also choose to write an email or letter, a report or a review. And as with all the writing tasks in C1 Advanced, you always write between 220 to 260 words. According to Cambridge English, a proposal is typically written either for a supervisor, which could be your boss or a director, or to a peer group. So for example, the members of a club that you've also joined, or for example your classmates, and so on. In a proposal, you always need to evaluate a present situation, and based on your evaluation you need to make a suggestion for future action. All of this seems awfully familiar because it is quite similar to report writing in C1 Advanced. However, there's one major difference. Reports are always written about something that happened in the past. For example, a survey that you've conducted, or an excursion that you went on, or some kind of panel discussion that you've visited. A proposal, on the other hand, always deals with something in the present. As I've mentioned just a moment ago, the focus in a proposal is always on evaluating a situation, as well as making a suggestion or recommendation for the future. The third major point that you should always keep in mind is effective text organization. That includes your paragraph structure, as well as headings and linking expressions that make it easier for the reader to follow your ideas and see how you've connected your thoughts. Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about the basics, let's have a look at a specific task and let's see how we can extract the most information possible to set us up for a successful writing task. If you have seen any of my other videos, you know that I'm a big fan of a thorough task analysis. A good task analysis helps us get all the information from the task that we need to write a good and successful text. Here you can see a typical example task for proposal in C1 Advanced. At first, it simply looks like a bunch of information that is not very well organized, but if we look at it a little bit more closely, we can get a lot of information out of it. The first question you should ask yourself is what topic you have to write about in your proposal. Knowing the topic always gives you a general idea, as well as some inspiration for possible vocabulary that you might want to include in your text. Looking at our example task from before, we can see that the task is about an old building that the city wants to demolish and you want to save it. Next, we need to go into a little bit more detail. So the second question should be, what exactly do I have to include in my text? Here we try to filter out the specific topic points which we need to address in our writing. Looking once again at our example, we can see that there are basically three questions that we need to answer in the text. Number one, why should the building be preserved? Number two, what could be done to modernize it? And thirdly and lastly, how could the building benefit the local people? And finally, you should always check who's going to read your text. Knowing the reader helps you choose the most appropriate style and register. In our example, we are writing to the city council. As these people are city officials, we should use a formal style for our proposal. So now that we know what the topic is, what the 3 main topic points are, as well as who's going to read our proposal, we can start thinking about how to structure our text. The structure of a typical proposal is very similar to that of a report. We always start with a title and introduction, followed by our main topic paragraphs, and last but not least, we finish with a conclusion and suggestion. Of course, this structure can be adapted to each individual task, but from my experience, this works for really 99.9% of the cases. So if you know this structure, you should be on the safe side. Once we've established the structure or frame for our proposal, we can now look at these individual parts and how we can master them. Let's start with the title and introduction. The title doesn't have to be anything special, but it is important that you include one, as this is a typical feature of a proposal. In your introduction, there are 2 main things that you should always include. First of all, you need to make it very clear what the purpose of your proposal is. And secondly, you should restate the topic of the task. In this case, please don't just copy the words from the task itself, but always try to paraphrase and say the same thing in your own words. In the example that I've written for this task, you can see at the top I have a title and I have a subheading for the introduction. More importantly, however, is that from the beginning it becomes clear what the purpose of my proposal is, and I paraphrase the information and the different topic points from the task. You see that your introduction doesn't have to be very long or anything spectacular. Just follow my tips and you will always be fine. Next in line, we have our topic paragraphs. The topic paragraphs are the meatiest part of our proposal, because here we address the different specific topic points that we've identified in the task. Just as in the introduction, you want to give each of your topic paragraphs a subheading, and you want to make sure that from the beginning it becomes very clear what each paragraph talks about. On top of that, you also want to include some good language, meaning the right vocabulary, as well as the correct style and register. As you might remember, we said that formal language is the way to go in our specific example task. As you can see here, each paragraph has its subheading, and from the beginning I make it clear what the paragraph is going to talk about. On top of that, I've tried to include some good language. As we are writing a proposal, we want to make it persuading. After all, we want the members of the city council to adopt our idea and to put it into practice. So you can see here in the blue boxes all the language that you can use if you want to convince somebody of your position. Last but not least, we need to conclude our proposal and make our final suggestions. After all, that's the main reason for writing the proposal in the first place. So once again, make sure that you include your final suggestions in this last paragraph, as well as some persuasive language to really drive your point home. Looking at my example conclusion, you can see that it's really just one sentence, but it is packed with information. First of all, I clearly state my opinion once again, and then I use some strong persuasive language to finish off my text. So I hope you found this example useful. Always remember, Proposals follow the same structure, and you are always asked to evaluate a present situation and make suggestions for future course of action. If you take my advice and incorporate these tips in your own practice, I promise you will improve in no time. Thank you once again for watching the video. If you found it useful, feel free to jump over to teacherphil.com to read the full article and to find out more about the different services that I offer on my website. You can also follow me on social media. All the links are in the description box below, and I see you next time.